The Great Exile. The Council's Judgment. The crystalline halls of the Galactic Council chamber echoed with voices of 1,000 species, but Captain Elena Vasquez could hear nothing over the pounding of her own heart. She stood in the defendant's booth, her hands cuffed with energy restraints that hummed with alien technology, watching as the most powerful beings in the galaxy decided humanity's fate. High Chancellor Zephyros, a towering being of pure energy contained within a mechanical shell, raised his staff of judgment. His voice boomed across the chamber, translated into every known language simultaneously. The species designation human has been found guilty of crimes against galactic order. The evidence is overwhelming and undeniable. Elena's throat felt dry as sand. Around her, representatives from 800 civilizations nodded in agreement. The Krillian Empire, with their insect-like faces and compound eyes, clicked their mandibles in approval. The peaceful Etherians, beings of light and wisdom, dimmed their luminescence in what she had learned was their expression of sorrow mixed with necessity. Even the machine intelligence of the Nexus Collective processed the decision with cold logic. What crimes? Elena found herself shouting, her voice cracking with desperation. What have we done that deserves this? The Chancellor's energy form pulsed brighter, and when he spoke, his words carried the weight of absolute authority. Humanity has proven itself too dangerous to coexist with civilized species. Your kind's capacity for violence, your unpredictable nature, and your tendency to question established order threatens the peace we have maintained for 10,000 years. Elena remembered the reports that had led to this moment. Human colonies that had dared to help enslaved species escape their masters. Human scientists who had shared advanced medical technology with dying civilizations, disrupting carefully maintained population controls. Human diplomats who had exposed corruption in the Council's inner circles, revealing trade deals that kept entire species in poverty while enriching the powerful. We helped people, Elena whispered, but her words were lost in the chamber's vastness. The Council's decision is final, Zephyros announced. All human presence will be removed from civilized space. You have 72 standard hours to evacuate every human settlement, colony, and outpost. Any human found within Council territory after this period will be considered an act of war. The gavel fell with a sound like thunder, and Elena felt her world shatter. The evacuation. 3 days later, Elena stood on the bridge of the transport vessel, New Horizon, watching as the last of humanity's colonies burned behind them. The Council hadn't waited for the deadline. Their enforcement fleets had arrived within hours, systematically destroying every trace of human civilization with surgical precision. Commander David Park moved beside her, his weathered face reflecting the orange glow of destruction visible through the viewport. Colony ships 7 through 12 have successfully jumped to hyperspace, he reported, his voice carefully controlled. That's the last of the civilian population from Sector 7. Elena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. They had managed to evacuate most of humanity's 12 billion souls, but the cost had been everything they had built over 3 centuries of space colonization. Entire cities reduced to ash. Art galleries and libraries that contained humanity's greatest achievements were now drifting debris in the cosmic wind. Captain, came the voice of Dr. Sarah Chen, the expedition's chief scientist, over the communication system. We're receiving data from the deep space monitoring stations. The Council fleets are using something called the Vermin Protocol. Elena's blood ran cold. She had heard whispers of the Vermin Protocol in classified military documents. It was the Council's final solution for species deemed too dangerous to exist. Complete eradication of all traces, down to the molecular level. They're not just banishing us, Elena realized aloud. They're trying to erase us completely. Every building, every monument, every piece of art or literature we left behind. They want the galaxy to forget we ever existed. Dr. Chen's voice carried a mixture of anger and fear. The energy readings suggest they're using planet crackers on our former homeworlds. They're literally breaking the planets apart and feeding the remains into stellar furnaces. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 6,000 years of human history being systematically destroyed. When she opened them again, her expression had hardened into something that would have made the Council reconsider their decision, if they could have seen it. "Set course for the void sectors," she commanded. "If they want us gone, we'll go so far that they'll never find us again." Into the unknown. The void sectors represented everything the Council feared about the unknown. These were regions of space so remote and dangerous that even their most advanced scouts had never fully mapped them. Black holes warped spacetime into impossible geometries. Neutron stars fired radiation that could kill most known species instantly. And somewhere in that cosmic wasteland, strange signals had been detected that suggested intelligences older and more powerful than anything in the galaxy's recorded history. Elena watched as humanity's evacuation fleet, now numbering over 800 vessels, prepared for the longest journey in their species' history. Colony ships designed for months-long voyages would now have to sustain millions of people for years or even decades while they searched for worlds that could support human life. "Captain," reported Navigation Officer Lisa Martinez, "we've identified 17 potentially habitable systems in the deep void. But the journey to the nearest one will take us 43 years at maximum sustainable velocity." 43 years. Elena did the math in her head. Most of the adults making this journey would never see their new home. It would be their children and grandchildren who would rebuild human civilization in the darkness between galaxies. "There's something else," Dr. Chen added, her voice heavy with implication. "The quantum resonance patterns we're detecting from the void regions don't match anything in Council databases. We might not be alone out there." Elena considered this information carefully. Humanity was fleeing into the unknown, carrying nothing but their knowledge, their determination, and their refusal to surrender. If there were other intelligences in the void, they would have to be contacted, understood, perhaps even befriended or fought. "All ships, this is Captain Vasquez," Elena announced over the fleet-wide communication system. "Today we begin the longest journey in human history. We go into darkness, into the unknown, carrying with us everything that makes us human. The Council believes they have destroyed us, but they have only freed us from their limitations." She paused, looking out at the vast expanse of space that would be humanity's home for the next several decades. "We will survive this exile. We will grow stronger in the void. And someday, when the galaxy needs us most, they will remember that humanity cannot be so easily erased." The deep void. As the fleet entered the void regions, the familiar stars of civilized space faded behind them until they were traveling through a realm of absolute darkness, broken only by the distant light of other galaxies. The psychological effect on the evacuees was immediate and profound. Children born during the journey would grow up seeing only the artificial lights of the ship corridors, never knowing the warmth of a sun or the feeling of wind across open ground. But humanity adapted, as they always had. The colony ships became floating cities, complete with schools, hospitals, research laboratories, and manufacturing facilities. Dr. Chen established the Void Research Institute, dedicated to studying the strange phenomena they encountered in deep space. Children learned not just human history and culture, but also the harsh lessons of survival in the cosmic wilderness. Elena aged during those long years of travel, but her determination never wavered. She established the Void Protocols, a set of principles that would guide humanity's development in exile. They would never again depend on the approval or assistance of others. They would develop technology that could survive in the harshest environments. And they would prepare for the day when they might need to defend themselves against forces that the Council had never imagined. Captain's Log, Year 37 of the exile. Elena recorded, her hair now gray but her eyes still sharp with purpose. "We've made contact with something in the void. The signals are clearly artificial, but the intelligence behind them is unlike anything in our databases. First contact protocols are in effect." The signal patterns were hauntingly beautiful mathematical symphonies that suggested a form of consciousness that existed on scales of time and space that dwarfed human understanding. When humanity's linguists finally cracked the basic communication protocols, the message they received changed everything. "We have watched," the message said in concepts that barely translated into human language. "We have waited. The small ones come seeking refuge, but they carry within them the potential for something greater. We will teach if they have the wisdom to learn." Alina realized that humanity's exile had not been an ending, but a beginning. In the deepest darkness of space, they had found teachers who would help them become something the galaxy had never seen before. The Silent Empire. 150 years later. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the command deck of the dreadnought Eternal Vigilance, watching as his tactical display updated with intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The massive starship, constructed entirely from materials harvested in the void between galaxies, hummed with technologies that would have seemed like magic to the council races who had banished his ancestors. "Admiral," reported Intelligence Officer Amanda Torres, her cybernetic implants glowing softly as she processed data streams from humanity's network of monitoring stations. "The Shadowkin have breached the Krillian Empire's outer defenses. 17 star systems have gone completely dark in the past week." Marcus nodded grimly, his enhanced eyes tracking the progression of destruction across the galactic map. The Shadowkin were everything the ancient void intelligences had warned humanity about. A species of pure entropy that consumed not just matter and energy, but the very concept of existence itself. Wherever they passed, space itself seemed to forget that anything had ever been there. The irony was not lost on him. The Galactic Council, which had banished humanity for being too dangerous, now faced extinction from a threat they could neither understand nor combat. Their greatest battleships, powered by fusion reactors that humanity had considered primitive 150 years ago, could barely slow the Shadowkin advance. Their most advanced artificial intelligences had been corrupted or destroyed within minutes of contact. "Status report on the Council's response," Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer would disappoint him. "High Chancellor Xirian has issued another call for unity and cooperation," Torres replied, unable to keep the disgust from her voice. "The same Xirian whose grandfather voted to exile humanity. They're forming a grand alliance of the remaining free worlds, pooling their resources for a final stand at the galactic core." Marcus walked to the massive viewport that dominated the forward section of his command deck. Through the transparent aluminum, he could see the void fleet that humanity had built during their exile. Thousands of vessels that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, capable of traveling through space-time itself, rather than merely across it. Each ship was crewed by humans who had been enhanced with void technology, their minds expanded to comprehend mathematics and physics that the council races could not even imagine. "And they still have no idea we exist," Marcus mused aloud. "The monitoring stations report that our stealth fields are holding perfectly," confirmed his chief of operations, Dr. Rebecca Kim. "As far as council sensors are concerned, the void regions are still empty wasteland. They have no idea that humanity has built an empire out here that spans 17 galaxies. The Hidden Empire." The transformation of humanity during their exile had been nothing short of miraculous. Guided by the ancient void intelligences, they had learned to harness energies that existed in the spaces between atoms, to build materials from crystallized time itself, and to enhance human consciousness until individual minds could contemplate the structure of reality at quantum levels. The first generation of void-born humans had been barely recognizable as the same species that the Council had exiled. Their lifespans measured in millennia rather than decades, their intelligence enhanced by symbiotic artificial intelligences that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that the Council's science couldn't detect. They had built cities that existed in folded space, manufacturing complexes that could convert dark matter into any desired element, and communication networks that operated through quantum entanglement across galactic distances. "Admiral," came the voice of Dr. Elizabeth Hahn from the Deep Research Division. "We're receiving the final analysis from the Shadowkin samples our scouts collected. The news is worse than we thought." Marcus activated the holographic display that showed Dr. Han's research station, located in a pocket dimension that existed entirely outside normal spacetime. The elderly scientist, her body sustained by void technology for over 2 centuries, looked exhausted despite her artificial enhancements. The Shadowkin aren't just destroying matter and energy, Dr. Han explained, her words carrying the weight of absolute certainty. They're unraveling the fundamental constants that hold reality together. If they consume enough of the galaxy, they'll create a cascade failure that will spread to other dimensions. Eventually, even our void empire wouldn't be safe. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature controls. The void intelligences had taught humanity to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, but even they feared the Shadowkin's power to reduce existence itself to nothingness. "How long do we have?" Marcus asked. "At their current rate of expansion, the Shadowkin will consume the galactic core within 6 months," Dr. Han replied. "The cascade failure would begin immediately after that. We're looking at the potential end of reality as we know it." The return. Marcus made his decision with the cold precision that void-enhanced humans had learned to apply to existential problems. "Signal all fleet commanders. We're implementing Protocol 7. Protocol 7 had been established decades ago as humanity's contingency plan for exactly this scenario. The return to the galaxy that had rejected them, not as supplicants begging for forgiveness, but as the only force capable of preventing universal annihilation. "Sir," questioned Commander Sarah Lopes, his tactical officer, "the Council will never accept our help willingly. They'll see our return as an invasion. Then we won't ask for their permission," Marcus replied. "Prepare the revelation protocols. It's time the galaxy learned what humanity has become." The first sign of humanity's return came to the Council's monitoring stations as impossible readings on their deep space sensors. Ships that appeared to be the size of small moons were materializing from empty space, their energy signatures unlike anything in the known universe. When the Council's fastest scout ships were dispatched to investigate, they found fleets that stretched beyond the horizon of their visual sensors. High Chancellor Xerion himself led the diplomatic mission that approached the largest of the unknown vessels. The ancient Etherian had survived for over 3,000 years, presiding over the Council through dozens of crises, but nothing had prepared him for what he found when his shuttle docked with a massive starship. The airlock opened to reveal a human figure, but one transformed beyond easy recognition. Admiral Marcus Chen stood 7 feet tall, his body enhanced with void technology that made him appear to glow with inner light. His eyes held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies, and when he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that resonated in dimensions the Chancellor couldn't perceive. "Chancellor Xerion," Marcus said, his tone carrying no trace of anger or resentment, despite the historical injustice between their peoples. "We need to talk." The revelation. The meeting took place aboard the Eternal Vigilance, in a conference room that existed in folded spacetime to accommodate beings from different dimensional frameworks. Chancellor Xerion found himself struggling to comprehend the technology surrounding him, while Marcus patiently explained humanity's transformation and their current situation. "You banished us to die in the void," Marcus stated simply. "But instead we found teachers who helped us evolve beyond your understanding. We've spent 150 years building an empire that spans multiple galaxies, developing technologies that can manipulate the fundamental forces of existence itself." Xerion's energy form flickered with confusion and fear. "Why are you telling me this? Why reveal yourselves now?" "Because the Shadowkin will destroy everything if we don't act," Marcus replied. "Your fleets can't stop them. Your weapons can't harm them. Your entire civilization is less than 6 months away from complete annihilation." The Chancellor's form pulsed with desperate hope. "You'll help us, despite what we did to your people." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his enhanced consciousness processing scenarios across multiple probability matrices. "We'll save the galaxy," he said finally, "but not for you. We'll save it because it's the right thing to do. and because allowing reality itself to unravel serves no one's interests. The New Order. The Battle of the Shadowkin Convergence lasted exactly 14 minutes by standard galactic time. Humanity's Void Fleet emerged from dimensions that the enemy couldn't perceive, wielding weapons that attacked the Shadowkin's ability to exist rather than merely damaging their physical forms. What had seemed like an unstoppable force of entropy was systematically reduced to harmless quantum fluctuations contained within dimensional prisons that existed outside normal spacetime. When the last Shadowkin was neutralized, Admiral Marcus Chen stood before the assembled representatives of 800 civilizations in the same chamber where his ancestor had been condemned to exile. But this time, he was not the one seeking judgment. "The immediate threat has been eliminated," Marcus announced, his voice carrying across dimensions to reach every being in the chamber. But the underlying problems that made this crisis possible remain unchanged. The galaxy's political structure is obsolete. Your technology is primitive. Your social systems create the very conflicts that attracted the Shadowkin in the first place. Chancellor Xerion, humbled by humanity's demonstration of power, asked the question that everyone was thinking. "What do you propose?" Marcus's expression remained neutral, but his words carried the weight of absolute authority. "Humanity will assume responsibility for galactic security and development. We'll establish monitoring stations in every system, provide advanced technology to species ready to use it responsibly, and maintain the peace through strength rather than politics." "You're talking about conquest," accused Representative Thane of the Warrior Guild, his battle-scarred features twisted with anger. "I'm talking about survival," Marcus corrected. "Your way of governing brought the galaxy to the brink of extinction. Our way prevented it. The choice isn't between freedom and subjugation. It's between evolution and annihilation." The Silent Empire. 1 year after the Shadowkin War, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. Humanity's void technologies had been carefully distributed to species that demonstrated wisdom and responsibility. Disease had been eliminated from hundreds of worlds. Poverty had become obsolete as matter converters provided unlimited resources. Wars had ended not through political treaties, but because the enhanced monitoring systems made conflict impossible to sustain. Admiral Marcus Chen now held the title of Galactic Coordinator, a position that carried responsibilities his ancestors could never have imagined. From his headquarters in the void between galaxies, he oversaw the peaceful development of trillions of sentient beings across thousands of worlds. Status report. He requested from his council of advisors, beams drawn from dozens of species who had proven themselves worthy of humanity's trust. "The Krillian Empire has successfully integrated void agricultural techniques," reported Dr. Zora Al-Hassan, a human-Itherian hybrid whose consciousness existed across multiple dimensions. "Food scarcity has been eliminated across their territory. The Nexus Collective has achieved breakthrough advances in consciousness transfer technology. 3 previously extinct species have been successfully restored using temporal reconstruction methods." Marcus nodded, reviewing data streams that showed the galaxy healing from millennia of mismanagement and conflict. But his enhanced consciousness remained focused on larger patterns, potential threats that existed beyond current understanding. "And the deep void monitoring stations?" he asked. "Still detecting signals from the far reaches," replied Commander Torres, now enhanced with void technology that made her original cybernetic implants seem primitive. "There are intelligences out there that dwarf even the ancient void teachers. Someday we may need to face them." Marcus allowed himself a rare smile. "Then we'll be ready." Humanity spent 150 years learning to survive in the darkness. Now we'll spend the next 1,000 years preparing the galaxy for whatever comes next. Through the viewport of his command center, Marcus could see the lights of human civilization stretching across the void between galaxies. They had been banished as dangerous primitives, but they had returned as the galaxy's guardians and protectors. The species that had once been considered too violent to coexist with civilized society had become the force that made true civilization possible. In the end, the Council had been right about one thing: humanity was dangerous, But they had learned to direct that danger toward protecting rather than conquering, toward building rather than destroying. They had become exactly what the galaxy needed, even if the galaxy had taken 150 years to realize it. The exile was over. The silent empire had begun. And in the deepest reaches of space, ancient intelligences watched with approval as humanity took its first steps toward becoming something even greater than they had imagined possible.